That speaks to the importance of having a space.
Yes.
You know, having the proper space to be able to have the safety. Because with vulnerability, you need the safety to open up and not be judged.
Yes.
For it to
Like-
just be a space to be listened to and heard rather than a space to just be responded to.
Like you saying this, I can't even keep myself together.
You don't have to.
You don't have
And
to.
I guess like the reason why I like took to heart what was said about persons being weak and your mental illness being seen as like not just a disability but as a character flaw is because
Why you always watching me? You know that come with the fee. Asking who inside my sheets. I can't even come in pee. Take it back, 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 back. Fully funded and abundant, and you lack. Who you is, big man? You don't know me like that. You's a snack, Kit Kat. I need some gon' make me fat. I need some gon' raise the stacks. I need some know how to act. You always texting where you at. Don't blow me up, just blow this back.
All right, so I don't know if y'all heard this, but a couple of weeks ago, probably happens to be probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. A very important figure in the Bahamas alluded to the fact that the reason why our suicide rate is so high currently is because our men are weak. Y'all heard that?
yes,
I did.
like my stomach right now just
How did you miss that? You didn't hear that?
No, and I think like for me, it's kind of like a disappointed but not surprised situation.
Absolutely.
Where it's just like, okay, cool, yeah, it happened. He said what he said. But the fact that there wasn't no uproar about it. Like no one, other than aside of like what I saw on Twitter where people were pretty much just like, how could you dare? But like no one within that agency said anything. And then even later on, he came back and blamed the reason for him saying that on the press being pushy, but still didn't
It
like
came out of your
rectify
mouth,
it.
yes.
It still didn't even say something as to, you know, apologize to understand, you know, better as to what he did wrong. And I feel like that speaks to the stigma we have in our country or just in general, really, around mental health, whether it be for women or for this instance, men.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's a stigma, and we also, at the same time, think it's a joke. Like, we don't think it's serious. Like, people, we literally talking about dead people. You know what I mean? And people take it lightly, which I struggle with. Because mental health is such a big issue, especially in these corona times. People are locked down. People have lost so much, and your mental is all you really have right now. And so if you don't have a handle on that, like, that's hard. That's not a laughing matter.
And I feel like to equate that to being weak, it almost every time I say it, it's like a
no, because
freaking
like I have this burning sensation in my stomach. Like I was so infuriated when I heard that. It's like I take that on a personal level, and it's not just because like I guess persons can say you're entitled to your own opinion, and his opinion is that those men are weak. But the fact that you have a freaking platform, and instead of you addressing the problem, you kick down those people and say that they are weak.
yeah.
So to me, it's like you are the weakest link.
Thank you. Exactly.
You are weak.
No,
Like,
exactly.
my blood is boiling. Like I am just like disgusted by the entire thing, especially like during the pandemic, and depression and anxiety is at an all-time high. And for you to go and say such an ignorant and uneducated thing, and let me just look in the camera and say you are weak. I am angry. You know, like my stomach.
And no, and I think it really speaks volumes to the issue that we have in this country with the stigma of mental health. And also in this country, which is a patriarchal society, the pressure that we put on men to be solely masculine.
Right. Strong. They can't cry. They can't show this emotion. So for him to say that they're weak, you weak. Because you can't even talk to them.
Exactly.
They already did what they had to do, clearly the reason why they're not here, and then you can call it weak. How about you use your voice?
Yes,
Exactly.
just
Talk
like
to
I
young
said.
men who's
Yeah.
under that much pressure. Because of
Exactly.
people like you, they feel weak.
That's even more. And the thing is, and that's true because like he has a platform. And a
Exactly.
platform that, oversees our entire country. And to have someone in that space of power to not even have respect
Right.
for, a man going through whatever it is that they're going through. How can we even trust someone like that to attend to those types of calls?
Exactly.
How can we trust someone like that to take care of these men? And I think it speaks to the issue that we have here with the differences we have with masculine and feminine, and the feminine role has been typecasted as being weak, as
Yes.
being vulnerable, as being beneath the masculine, or even in some veins being sexual or being demonized or needing to be controlled and protected. Whereas just like I find that if we encourage men to embrace the balance of masculine and feminine, even women embracing the balance of masculine and feminine, because that's what life is about, it's that balance, we would find ourselves in a society that's more appreciative and understanding of these types of issues. We now find ourselves, calling men weak for having mental health issues.
Yes.
And what does that even mean? Like,
Yes.
how does that make you weak?
It means that you are ignorant and you need to educate yourself.
Yeah.
I think they fail to realize that we are all human, whether it's female or male. Everybody experiences emotions. So for you to just put that one statement on just because of your mental health, everybody goes through things.
Yeah.
And that's where the pressure comes in. Like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. The pressure of women, the pressure of men, and it's just overrated, honestly.
Obviously, men are held to even stricter standards of like what is allowed for you to express. But I think in our culture, even women, even children, we don't allow to have real emotions. Like at the end of the day, all right, what you got going on? Let me hear it. Anyway, go pray about that. You straight.
Yes.
That's so much. It's like mental illness.
Everything
It's
is a
just like a
demon or-
medical illness.
And
Or it's the spirit.
And I think that boils down to, even speaking ahead, like when it comes to therapy, when it comes to dealing with people that have mental illnesses, as a country, we need to understand that the church is not an answer, in the sense that if you have these pastors, priests, or whatever dealing with people with mental health issues, they need to be trained to some psychological, advancement to deal with these issues. It can't just be a straight off the bat, go pray about it, or, go repent or whatever.
God,
Like, it has to be an actual solution, a help, an outlet for people to deal with their mental health issues. And that's that's way down the line.
But to be honest, I'm not even team that. I'm sorry, I'm not even team train the pastors how to do it. Like, you have a job, do that.
Yeah.
Lead your flock.
It shouldn't even be
there
your
are
field.
mental health professionals who could even talk to you from a religious angle. Like, there are people who are trained and have degrees already who also believe in your God and will connect to you there. You know what I mean? You don't have to train a pastor on mental. You want them to go to college and get a 4-year degree? No.
Like even
we already have people who do this. You know what I mean?
But I feel like, and you do bring up a valid point, because you do have therapists that have religious backgrounds or Christian backgrounds or whatever it is that you need to feel more comfortable, I guess, in that space. But I feel like it takes us back to the beginning, the fact that the stigma is there and it's alive and well.
Yeah.
Like, men in this country don't get to speak about their emotions. They don't get to cry. They don't get to talk about their hardships, because we constantly indoctrinate them to feel like they have to be masculine all the time. And that masculine word, under that is just strong, hard-headed, just blindsided. Like, everything is just straight on. There's nothing on
And shut down.
Shut down, no emotions, no nothing. But we don't realize what that leads to. And for me, and I've always felt this way, I feel that if we didn't have the stigma with mental health, allowed men to embrace the feminine side of, more emotions, more talking, more communication, we wouldn't find ourselves with such a spike in crime rate. We wouldn't find ourselves with so much domestic violence. We wouldn't find ourselves with such high suicide rates. Like
Alcoholism.
and alcoholism,
Yeah.
exactly.
Traffic
Yeah.
accidents.
Like,
Road rage.
Yes.
like you said, like just a couple minutes ago, like we're number 2 in the world with the whole alcoholism. Yeah.
In the world?
In the world.
In the world.
This little Bahamas.
But you can see that though, because I mean, drive by any bar in the middle of the day, and what you can
Man,
see
that's a
bunch
lot
of men
in the world.
on the wall,
world, though.
drinking.
Who's number one?
Oh, I didn't know.
She just saw us, and she was like, "That's it. We need to solve this problem."
Yeah.
But no, it's true. It's true. And alcoholism is synonymous with depression and suicide. Like
Yes.
men are more likely to abuse alcohol, to abuse drugs, and 3.5 times more likely to kill themselves
suicide.
because
Yeah.
they cannot speak about what is going on.
Yeah.
And that's a serious thing.
And a dangerous thing.
You know what's
Yeah.
sad too, I think? I feel as though you generally do have some men that they try to confide in, perhaps maybe like the women that they're in relationships with. And then I don't want to nitpick on anybody, but you do have some women there as well who is just like, why are you crying to me all the time?
Exactly. Yes.
And like, excuse my language, like, oh, you was a little punk or you was a little sissy. And it's like, okay, so you want me to have emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Without expressing emotions.
Right.
It goes both ways too. And just like how men are indoctrinated to feel that, emotions are bad, women are also brought up to think
Y'all
that
supposed to be strong.
y'all supposed to
Yeah.
be strong. You ain't supposed to never cry. You ain't never supposed to show me that, things ain't going well, yada, yada, yada. And that exacerbates the issue. It just
Yeah.
creates that cycle that it just keeps going. And then, then those two people raise kids.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
those kids go and raise kids. And we're in the same vein where it's
And we
okay to
teach
say
them the
something.
same fantasy. It is an absolute fantasy. It does not exist that you could just be this strong robot of a person and everything is going to be fine. Like, I've never seen that work. Like, have you?
And a lot of them, like you say, they learn it from their family members. So if a father has a son, they'll be like, oh, your mommy just stressed me out. Let's go to the bar. Like, no, figure it out.
true.
And that's literally what they do.
Oh, if the
Go,
sun
son, come with me, go to the
stop being
bar.
a little sissy.
That's true. And I remember
Yeah.
one time I was getting my nails done, and my nail tech right next to a bar, and had a nail tech table set up. You could see outside the window, and this man pulled his car in and went to the bar to go get something to drink. And I was like, oh, typical freaking Bahamian man going to the bar, middle of the day, just drinking. He's standing outside his car with the drink on the back of the hood, just drinking. And then I see this little boy come out the back seat, and I was just like, what the hell? He had his child in the car the entire time. And you could hear the child saying, Daddy, let's go home. Daddy, let's go home. Oh, stop being a little punk, man. You need a drink. And like, from that already set, like, a child's mind is like a sponge. In the middle of the day, you have your son here witnessing you drinking. I'm assuming your problems away, trying to numb yourself. And when your son is trying to take you to go home, your response is, no, you being a little punk.
Yes.
Like, you having too much emotions. Then the son started crying, and then that just escalated
Of
stuff.
course it did, yeah.
Oh, boys ain't supposed to cry. Use man, use this, use that. And it's just like, within that moment, you see something that's so prevalent in this country, like, that's so freaking common to just even hear Bahamians tell little boys, you was man don't cry. Like, that's just such a common thing.
Sir,
to
he's
It is
3.
very
Yeah.
common.
He's 3, sir. It's not man.
It's not
you
the end of
know,
the world.
like what? But I feel like that just sets the cycle, because
Yes.
then, that little boy then sees that. So then what does that lead to? That could lead to that little boy then falling into depression. That could lead to that little boy, falling into bullying. That could lead to that little boy getting into drugs, starting to drink himself. And who knows after that, maybe dropping out of school, joining a gang, like all of that, it's a correlation.
Funny you say that exact same thing actually happened to my dad. Like, that is the way that he grew up. And he would tell us stories about how his father would take him and his brothers. I guess he would promise to take them to the beach. And then they would stay in the car from 12 straight until like late in the night with their daddy in the bar. And he would just come back to the car drunk.
Oh my God.
And like the cycle repeated, like my dad got into like, well, he's a pastor now, but he got into like partying and like I guess using marijuana and stuff like that. And I completely agree. The cycle, like it literally starts there. It's just what his dad was doing. Like he was going down the same path. It was actually my mom that kind of.
And you need a strong woman.
I know, right? You need a strong woman
Like
to
you
be
were
like,
so spot on. I was just like, wow. I remember my daddy telling us this story.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know about all of
spot
that.
on.
I don't know about
Spot on.
all of that. You know, I firmly believe women are not rehab centers for men.
No, we're
And no,
not.
and that's another thing.
We're
That's
definitely
another
not.
thing too.
We're
That's-
definitely not. But I
Okay.
feel as if men need to take responsibility and understand that you have to channel your emotions. Now, I personally didn't have experiences where I was raised in a home where I saw that. I didn't even know what drinking was until I went to high school. I was
But you
drinking.
grew up in Naughty.
you ain't know what a doggy look like. You ain't know what drinking is. Like,
Like,
what are you doing
I-
in Freeport?
No, it ain't even that. It's just like my parents' structure. They understood chaos, and when we came in the house, it was like we're not doing this. I always tell my parents they did too much of a good job raising us because they didn't prepare us for the reality of the world.
Yeah.
How they raised us is not how the world is. However, that's how it should be ran. But it isn't like that. I didn't have that experience of seeing my daddy explode or whatever. I always hear them two talking things out. Like they never
Good.
shouted in front of us.
Good.
None of that stuff. And that needs to be taught.
It
Like
does.
every time my father would see somebody
Thank you.
struggling with something, he would try to help. Be like, no, it's the other way. Like I always tell him, I would always tell him that you always looking for the good things, man. People bad. No, baby.
People bad.
No, I'm like, he's like, no.
I don't
Like,
meet your daddy.
He's like,
man.
everyone who meets my father, there's like, I wish that was my father. There's like, Box, you don't understand how lucky you are to have a father like this because we were raised in homes where it was alcohol abuse. The daddy ain't explaining nothing to the mommy. You have big communication
even
issues.
there.
Yeah,
If the daddy
that's
was
another
even
thing,
there.
right? He was even
You're right.
there.
You're right. Because that was another thing that I didn't realize was a thing. Because I always had my father in my life, and all my friends didn't have their father in their lives, and
Yeah.
I'm like sharing stories, feeling bad for sharing my stories because they have
Yeah.
like great
Yeah.
memories, and they don't have any. They're like, but you don't know how lucky you are.
Really?
But we need men like that to come together and help these kids.
Agreed.
Because now it ain't many men who making sense. However, the little ones are making sense. Like,
Yes.
we need y'all to come together.
Yeah.
Because you can't, like, my dad was never, like, even watching him with my brother. If my brother cried, he let him cry. He ain't gonna be like, oh, be a man, or do
That's
this, or do
different.
that.
Yeah.
So my experience and hearing you guys talk about it and seeing it, I'm like, wow, this is really
Yeah.
I
different.
was like, wait,
Different.
what?
Like, because I wasn't raised in a home like that, honestly.
And I definitely get that because like for me, I experienced both. So my father was extremely abusive, abused drugs, alcohol, everything, and definitely not in tune with his emotions. And he wasn't even Bahamian. So that just shows you this is a global thing.
Yeah.
So when I grew up on the basis of, look, we don't really talk like that. I'll share all of my good times and my emotions with my mommy, but with my daddy, it's just like
It's
nothing.
strict.
It's just very
Yeah.
strict.
Yeah.
But then after my mom divorced him and then married my stepdad, who was like all into communication. Like, and for me, and the thing is like when he first came into my life, I hated him because I was just like,
He's too expressive.
he's too expressive. Like he's too expressive. He shows too much love. Like he loves my mommy. Like the ground that she
Yes,
walks
he do.
on. But it's just like to me that was so bizarre because that's not what I was used
Wasn't
to.
familiar.
So I hated him for so long because I was just like, how can you be so happy? Like how can you be so in love? How can you be so in tune with your emotions and communicate and all that stuff? But now looking back at it, I had like both worlds. I experienced a man that, was full on masculine, never
Yeah.
talked about emotions, never talked at all really, just was like a do. And then a man who raised me to express myself,
Yeah.
to
That's
be
awesome.
myself, to,
That's awesome.
explore myself and to be okay with emotions. And so I can identify with what you're saying with the importance of having a man in the household of that caliber. And we already spoke, like a lot of times men aren't even in the
I was gonna
household.
say I've never had a man in my household ever.
No.
Well, that's not true. My mom was married to my stepfather until I was around 4 and we left. But that was a bad situation, bad situation. And since then, it's just been me and her. Like,
Yeah.
she ain't even want to do that no more.
Girl, child. Feel that.
But I honestly didn't know that the rates was that high. And now that we're talking about it,
Yeah.
it makes sense because when you think about it, it's like, okay, the rates are that high because nobody likes to communicate and everything is, oh, you associate.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
do?
that's-
Just do
that's
this.
so
And it's
ugly.
like, the insulting that happens towards men in terms of mental health is ridiculous.
And like that even leads into homophobia.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So when you look at how we push men to be so masculine, we also end up with a lot of closeted homosexuals because you cannot be yourself. You cannot truly express who you are because of that stress of, oh, use a sissy, use a this, use a that. And like for me, that, like I understand how that word is within like our vocabulary as Bahamians, but like it makes me cringe because it's still so derogatory and so homophobic, and it doesn't allow men who are actually homosexual to express themselves because we have such a strong hold
Even
on...
the sissies can't express themselves.
You cannot say that around me. Period. I will get your whole life together. I cannot stand homophobia.
Yeah, right?
You maybe you so happy, bubbly, happy, but say something homophobic around me.
But I feel like that whole stigma with men having to be masculine drives that.
Yes.
If we were understanding and allowing of, you know, men having the balance of masculine and feminine. And the thing is, having the balance of masculine and feminine doesn't make you gay.
No.
Like I don't understand
Just
if
makes
men,
you
but
a full human
But
being.
see, when you have that balance of masculine and feminine, the guys who have that balance, they are real gentlemen. And a lot of people scream, they don't want to be gentlemen, they want to be thugs, they want to be
Yes.
pimps. Nobody wants to be a gentleman. You know why? No, for real. Like in order for you to be a gentleman, you have to be in touch with your feminine side.
You
And if you look at it, a lot of men are not gentlemen. They'll be the thug, they'll be the pimp, they'll be the man.
Love this word.
No, for real.
No, but
they'll
it's
be
true.
the-
It's true.
How often do you see a guy saying, "Oh, I want to open up her door"? That's not gonna happen. You know
Chivalry
why?
is
Because she's soft. Why you opening up her door? She have hands.
Yeah.
That don't make sense.
Well, I don't know where they find those type of men, but that's me in my household. No, sorry.
But I feel you need to find you a cancer man.
Child. Anyway, don't start
But-
on astrology and stuff because I got too much opinions.
But there is definitely a difference. Like even from experiencing it in my household, like how I was raised, when it comes to dating a man who is in touch with his feminine side and dating a man who's like definitely not. I also realized that majority of the men that I've dated that are not in touch with their feminine side were when I were dating Bahamian men. And that was just a cringy
I
moment for
have
me.
a question for you. So I know you said your, I guess, biological dad, he wasn't emotionally available, and you hated your stepdad. Like, why did you hate him when he wanted to love you? Like, what was it?
Because I wasn't used to being loved by a male figure. For me, like my childhood was so deeply rooted in verbal and physical abuse from a man. Having a man try to come in my life to be like, no, I really care about you. Like I want to teach you things. I want to see you flourish and see you grow. That was just like what? Like no,
Okay.
I don't trust y'all. And it took and he gives me shit about it to this day. Like, yeah, you fucking hated me. And I'm like, yeah, I did, but it was so stupid because I mean, I learned a lot from him, which is why I'm such like a science geek now. But if I let my guard down a little bit more, I mean, obviously to no fault of my own because that was my environment, I'm sure that I would have gotten so much more from that relationship from someone who really was in tune with their emotions.
Okay.
But it also just shows you like the triggers it has on kids
Yes.
to
Yeah.
be around, you know, figures that aren't in tune with their emotions. And that even goes into women. Like just as you said, like women are they're strongholds for men to act like that too. And a lot of times it's because as women we don't really express our emotions. And I feel like it's in a different vein because we don't want to be seen as too emotional because then we're too much on that feminine
Yeah.
side and now we're weak. And that's why we have to blend that line that we have between masculine and feminine for both sides, because this typecast we have on either end, they can't survive alone. Like, you have to have that ebb and flow of masculine and feminine going in and out with each other to have that balance within life, to be able to understand when it is to be strong and when it is to be understanding and reflective.
Yes.
And we lack that on both ends.
On both, because I was gonna say I had a strong woman raise me, and she was strong, strong, strong. I think I've seen her cry, like I can count it, maybe on one hand in my lifetime. And she had a lot she could have cried. She should have cried about. You know what I mean? But we have this thing where we have to be strong, 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 strong.
And I just want to say, I don't like the fact that we categorize strong as holding things in. It's strong, but then how strong is it? Because you have to be able to communicate. You should be able to communicate. Whenever you think about strong, they just want to bottle everything in, and I worked through this, but did you really work through it? Because if I talk about that right now, you one punch me. I'm sorry.
Imploding.
Yeah. But I feel, even though yes, she is strong because she went through it, she didn't really show you her side of the emotions. She could be even stronger talking about it.
And that is vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Yes.
That is that
And that
vulnerability.
thing is hard, because I feel like we doing a lot of talking to me and like, oh, you can't express anything. The thing we're talking about is actually really difficult to do. Like, to actually be vulnerable, especially if you've never seen it.
Yeah.
You know, like, when you had that come into your life, it was very hard for you to adjust to it. Even though it was a good and positive experience, human beings like what is familiar.
Yes.
And especially children. You could talk to your child all day. You could talk. They're going to do what you do, not what you say.
Yes.
That
They're
is
going to
a
watch you.
fact. That is a
And do just what you do.
You are correct. Because how much parents say, don't do drugs, but if they doing drugs, their children are gonna do drugs too. As much as they say don't do it,
Yeah.
and
Mom,
they
you
do it,
cannot
they
come
wanna do
home
it.
smelling like 10 pack of grabbers. And then tell your child, oh no, smoking is bad. No.
Yeah, don't worry.
No.
You have to lead by example.
Yeah.
No, and I feel like that's an issue too when it comes to being a black woman. Like, that whole idea of being a black woman is that you're strong,
Girl.
and that's
I
it.
hate it.
And that is it.
That's it. Not only are you strong, but you everybody therapist. You're supposed to uphold the black man. You're supposed to take care of your kids. You're supposed to do this and also take care of yourself. But if you take care of yourself too much,
I can't say too much.
like, hold on now, what we doing? And then it's just like, well, like, what do you want me to do? And I love when Keeya is say what she is say. Now go ahead and say it.
That I'm a soft black woman.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, keep that strong shit. I don't want
Like,
that.
keep that
No,
strong shit.
I'm
Because at the end of the
soft.
day, you only applying this word strong to me because you want me to be strong for you.
Yeah.
Because you ain't taking care of your own shit.
Yeah.
And that is what it is, because when I am strong for me, then it's an issue. And when I look after myself, it's an issue.
Yes.
You only telling me as a black woman to be strong because you don't want to deal with your own shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to push
makes
that
sense.
even further. And you don't want to help me none. How about that? How about you want me to be strong when you really mean do it yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't want to help you. I don't want to support you.
Exactly. And I feel like when it comes to hair and light hair, and I see it so many times where it's a struggle, because you have the black woman trying to be strong to take care of, the man, and then you have the man who just don't want to make it seem like things ain't going his way, and then you have the child just witnessing it all.
Yeah, watching all of this.
It's just like, how do we stop that?
Tell the truth, because all of that is a fantasy. Like, the first step is just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about men, like, men will swear up and down that they're fine and I'm good, I got it. Sir, it's 9 a.m. You walk in the road drinking a cold collect.
No, a hot one. Because theirs be hot.
You okay? Like look at your life for true. We having people jump out their cars and getting into altercations when they had a fender bender. Like, you can't be a
that
stable
ain't
person.
normal.
No.
You have men who abandon their families, and it's so normal that we don't think to talk about it, but really get into that. What mental state are you in that you could abandon your child
I
Yeah.
agree.
and don't check for them at all? You think you really think you good up here? Like, that's mental illness, sir.
Yeah.
You're not okay. Like, it requires being real with yourself.
Yes.
Take stock of your life. How am I for real? And that's what we're scared to do.
And all we have to do is just express that. Reach out. And like you said, going back to the beginning, your leaders, you looking up to who running the country or who dealing with
They
your
don't even know how to
constituency.
do
You're
that.
like,
Right.
we're good.
Hello.
We better now.
I am the chef tomorrow and the sous chef. That is John Altitude. And thanks for coming. So what we have here for tonight, you guys, some plantain chips. I heard that was all the real.
That's my jam. The chips and the dips.
All right. Well, you know, we can't have a chip without the dip.
Exactly.
All right, so we got some calamari here.
That's me.
So we got 2 others for fritters.
Yes, I love them conky.
Y'all make them nice and
Yeah,
comfy.
they're no lie. They were so
Exactly.
good.
And they are conky.
Oh, yeah, this one's nice.
Good,
Good.
Awesome.
I'm the greatest server in the world, Dino.
Thank
Dino
you.
is pretty good and he smells delicious.
Leave this man alone.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I know, but I ready to eat.
Yeah,
Buddy.
same. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at these like.
I don't even need this fork and knife y'all
you.
provide, but I appreciate the gesture. Yeah, I appreciate the gesture. I could just, I could put it right here so we got more
trying to figure
space.
out.
Yeah, they got for the aesthetics, so, you know, we look a little sophisticated.
You can put that right in my. Thank you, honey.
Yeah, just grab it.
Enjoy.
And the plantain
Crunchy,
crunchy.
I heard it.
Well, we know when one of
Y'all
the
heard that?
right?
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
Thank
I love how we just drop that little tidbit and
And
leave.
dip and leave.
But,
Ooh, that's good.
hold on.
I forget my train of thought all this time in the mix.
Box is like putting this comfort on my lap, dog. Okay, yep.
That's too.
It's happening.
Yeah, man.
It's happening.
Ooh, won't you do it?
I saved my deli for this.
It was so good.
I love how crunchy they are. And there's like multiple dips. There's guacamole, there's cheese, there's a little pico de gallo. Really hot. All right. But I remember you saying, the fact is that we have our whole police force, and it is what it is, that equating suicide to being weak. That's an issue. Because when we do have these issues, who do you call? And you know, you even see it in the States. You have people calling the police for mental health issues
Again, shoot.
and getting shot. Or pretty much for being black. So it's just like, who do you call? And even to think about it, like growing up here, I don't even know any therapists here.
Sorry to go off
I
topic.
know zero.
But it just like clicked in my mind when you started calling the police. You have some men that call the police about abuse from their women.
Yes,
and they get
don't-
laughed at.
Yes, they do get laughed at.
That is true.
Seriously.
Yes,
No,
they
that
do.
is true.
No, that really just like
That is
clicked in my
very true.
head.
To be honest, I'm surprised they was brave enough to call. I wouldn't even, if I was a man, I wouldn't even feel comfortable.
Because you know they're not going to take you seriously. But that's another issue over here. So that's a whole nother episode.
But I think in general, growing up, I didn't know much about therapists. I mean, I had been taken to counselors, like my mommy pastor, and child. It wasn't giving what it was supposed to give. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't hitting the way
And
they
that's
thought.
true. Like even me, like I didn't grow up in a religious household, but like I always compared getting help to a pastor or like a, you know, someone within a church.
Yeah.
I never even really thought about that. Even like with me growing up with all of the friggin' shit I had to deal with, like I never really went to therapy until like recently.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't even, where are the outlets?
And
I honestly
therapy
don't
is
know.
really expensive. I
That's
think
another
some people
thing.
really want to go to therapy,
but
but,
they
it's
can't
like,
afford it.
honestly,
Honestly,
therapy
right
is-
now I'm doing online therapy for that same reason.
yeah. I don't want to like
It's
knock
affordable.
anybody's profession, but over here, I don't think it's affordable
It's
at
not
all.
easily accessible.
This may be
No.
a very, no question is a dumb question, but what about Sandlands? Sandlands, do they provide therapy?
They do, but the thing is, like, I guess where it's free, because my mom works there actually. They're so overwhelmed with persons, especially during this time. It's like they cannot accommodate everybody. Nobody can afford, like, I guess the private practices, and yeah, they're very much overwhelmed. They can't even take on people right now.
It's funny that you brought that up because I feel like as a child, Sandalins was almost like a joke. It was like, oh, you can get sent, and why is that? Like, it's a resource.
And that's so true because that's always a joke. And I mean,
Or
I
a
admit,
threat. A joke or a
Yeah,
threat?
a threat or a joke. And I admit, even in my younger days, I've used that as a joke. Like, you know, they make that joke, like when you take someone to Sandlands, you get a
case of vitamin.
Right?
I was about to say the same thing.
Is that true?
They got
Where's the case of vitamin? I don't understand it.
You never hear that?
No.
What is that? If you don't know?
They say that when you admit someone to Sandlands, you get a case of vitamin.
As your good deed. You get
As your good
Yeah.
deed for admitting a person to...
who needs help.
Which
I
is,
didn't know.
when you really think about it,
It's messed up.
that's fucked up.
That's very messed up.
And that was a joke. But it shows how
We don't take it seriously.
we don't take it seriously. And even like now, the things that I know now about mental health, the things that I know now about anxiety and depression and, you know, body dysmorphia, I've been struggling for a while, and I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even know those things had names. And the thing is, like, to no fault of my mom or my stepdad, I guess, because, I mean, I didn't really talk. The communication wasn't there, but it's just like, it's upsetting to think how many kids deal with those issues and are in households that even if they did say something, wouldn't support them.
Yeah.
Or would send them to the church and just be like, go, you know, pray it away or whatever. And then when you look at the rate of suicide we have in kids, especially in this country, and even then, it's not taken seriously. It's not, like, I know we had a suicide recently of a younger kid, and it's disappointing because it didn't trigger anyone to say, hey, this is a serious issue. Like, why is this happening? Like, no one thought to try and rationalize it or try and understand it, and then to have someone just deduce it to being weak. And then you have to ask yourself, like, what if there were outlets? You know, how different would it have been? And even to speak for myself, like, I tried to kill myself a few times when I was younger. I didn't have the outlets.
Yeah.
But it's just like, we need to do better, man. Like, we really need to do better. Like, where is the access to mental health care? Where is the access to outlets so we can talk about these things and not be made a joke of it or not be called fucking weak? Weak.
It's like either it's funny, you're weak, or my least favorite one, and it's the one I heard, you want attention.
Oh my God,
I
yes.
hate it.
Want
And do you know, I had a huge, I've been in therapy for 3 years now. I had a huge breakthrough with my therapist because I was telling her something, and she's black too, which I love. But I was telling her something, and like we got into a moment, and she was like, okay, now you're pissed. And I'm like, you think I want attention, right? Because that's a trigger for me. And she was like, she just stopped and she said, your thoughts and feelings are worthy of attention. And that stopped me in my tracks. I was like, well, bitch, damn. Like,
What to say next?
Like, wait, what?
ain't nobody ever told me that. My thoughts and my feelings are worthy of attention. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't get why that's a bad thing. It's like, yeah, I want attention because I need help. It's like,
I don't know what
you're
to
telling
do.
me it's wrong for me to want help. And you're also deducing it to something that's just so minuscule when this is my life. This is major. Like, this could make or break the beginning or the ending of my life. And for you to just, and 9 times out of 10 is projection. So you'll have that person telling you just want attention because they never got the attention for the mental health issues that they suffered from. And that creates a cycle. And that's where we are right now in freaking 2021, where we can have someone with such a huge impact say something of that caliber and not even rectify it, not even apologize, not even try and get a deeper understanding, but not even just him. No one else took that as like a wow, wake up moment to say, we need to change these things. Like, we need to talk about this in schools, like especially after we had a juvenile commit suicide. Yeah, he was like 14. No one said, hey, maybe we should talk about this.
I was about to say something about the schools. I was like, do we really know what guidance counselors are here for?
I know my guidance counselor used to sell popsicles. That's it.
Mine, and I used to try to go to mine, and bad experiences.
Mine didn't like me.
No?
But I feel as if we should, even though we don't really know what guidance counselors are here for, when we have assemblies and stuff, that should be, that should be known.
It should be.
I've been through my whole life through high school. I thought guidance counselors just supposed to tell me what subjects to take.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I lied.
Until I went to boarding school.
Yes.
And
That's
I
when I knew the
realized,
change.
like,
Okay.
wait, what? You want me to sit down and talk about my feelings? Like, what is
And that's not initially like, I mean, that isn't what they all there for, but they're an outlet
They are an outlet.
to talk to, but we don't know that though.
And the thing is, even in Canada, like, they're an outlet to guide you where you need to go. So if, you're dealing with issues at home, or if you're dealing with, you need a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, they can send you there. I don't know if we even have that here.
Those other outlets? Definitely not. We don't have that. We just have the guidance counselor. And what they do, they just put all the pressure on them. So they are the ones that deals with, they're the ones that deal with abuse in the house and stuff like that. Because I have family members who are guidance counselors, and they deal with a lot. And it's like, some of them do get reported when they're terrible.
Yeah.
Like, extremely terrible, where police has to be involved. But other than that, it's just like them. So imagine a big government school with only 2 guidance counselors. That is impossible.
Crazy.
And a lot of
And
times,
these
that's where
schools are not so
majority of the
big.
issues are.
2 people can't help the whole school.
No.
All them children come from different backgrounds and homes. They need help.
Yeah.
And when they are used, it ain't enough. And half the people don't even know you can go to them to talk.
And a part of me, like, I don't see why the police are called. I don't see why police need to deal with mental health issues.
No.
What
they
they can do?
Well, we see what they're doing in the States.
They do.
You can imagine you call the police, you having a mental health crisis, and they pull up and you fucking lock up. Like,
In the States,
How does that work?
it's been so many issues in the States where they've been called for mental health. Like, there was this pastor that got killed. His wife called him for a mental health episode that he was having, and they shot him at the door.
What?
Before he could even get out. And it's like, why do you have these people dealing with mental health issues? But the thing is, you can't even blame the people for calling, because who the fuck else are you going to
They're
call?
gonna
Wait, why did
Yeah.
they shoot him?
What do you mean, why they shoot him?
Because he probably was black.
Because he black.
And he probably, his mental health probably had him in the position where it was, I'd say, he come across attacking. Because that's the only way to see you shoot the whole
That he
unit.
had
They knew the issue, but there's been
and they shot him.
yeah, and that's not
Different
even
topic for a different
that's not
day.
novel. That happens all the time. They just harassed a 9-year-old girl that
I
they got
saw
called
that.
for. They maced her,
They handcuffed her.
Yeah.
And they were like, you're acting like a child.
and she was like, "I am a child." And I wonder too if that kind of follows over here, where we expect black children to be stronger and to be older than they actually are when it comes to their issues. Because, I mean, when you look at when white people be shooting up the place in the States, they just get taken to Burger King, because we always equate, white people to be serial killers and they got issues and blah, 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 blah. But when it's black people, it's just like, oh, we got to kill you, or like, we're not going to take you seriously. And it just shows that it's a global thing. It's not just here. Like, black people with mental health issues, it's taboo. Like, it's taboo for us to go to therapy. It's taboo for us to even do yoga. Like, to get black people to do yoga is one of the hardest things ever, because initially, even me, when I first started, I was like, that's not for me. Like, what? You want me to sit down and just breathe? Like, I got shit to do. But it's like, to have even like to try and convince my mommy to do it, like initially it was just like, no, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta get this, make sure the house clean and make sure the food cooked. But it's just like, I have white people come to my class easy breezy at 10 o'clock on a weekday. So it's just like, why can't that be available to black people? Why can't it be okay for black people to do that? And not so much in the eyes of the outside, but for the eyes of ourselves. Like, it's almost as if we don't feel like we deserve the vulnerability to sit down and tune in to what is really going on.
I just want to say, we don't want to deal with ourselves. We want to deal with everybody else's problem and have our opinions, but we don't want to deal with
You're
ourselves.
so right. Friend, as long as you've been doing yoga, I just started this year. this year, and you stay inviting me. And I'm like, yeah, girl. I was like, child, I ain't coming to that.
But that happens all the time. And every year it gets better and better when I see more Black people diving into yoga and when I see more Black men doing yoga. Like I love seeing Black women doing yoga, but when I see a Black man show up to my yoga class, it's like, it warms my soul because to see a Black man take care of himself from a different standpoint that's not, and there's nothing wrong with going to the gym, playing basketball or whatever, but being more in tune with mind, body, and spirit, there's something so beautiful about that. And the men that I know that practice yoga are some of the most like well-depth men. Like they're just so multidimensional. They're so in tune with themselves, and what they do from that, they take that home.
Now, I want to say something on that. Now that you say that, my daddy low-key be doing yoga. No, like, no, he's different now.
He's different now.
He's different now.
Different.
I ain't gonna lie.
Is
Because
that yoga?
he's a fitness trainer, right? So he works out every day. But afterwards, like this is how I know what the downward dog and stuff is. I learned that from my father because he's into fitness and the body and stuff. He always let us finish with stretching, and a lot of yoga is in it. He's like, okay, y'all breathe. I'm like, now that you sit, I'm like, wait, this dude is Superman. He making sense. And he's very peaceful. I've never heard my daddy row, never hear him shout. He is in tune with himself.
That's
crazy. Now that I think about it, I'm like, this dude be doing yoga.
And that's the tie-in of the feminine. I think yoga is all about the blend of the masculine and the feminine, that ebb and flow. When you have men, and not even just yoga, when you have men that tap in to the sacredness of taking care of self. And we do it over here to men all the time. Men who get, pedicures, or men who is dressed nice,
Who
or
do anything other than bathe.
or do anything other than bathe, But I am about to.
No, I had to introduce him like, honey, like taking them toes and taking them like hands and skin, like you can't be around me and you have them little cracker toes. Like seriously, no, so like we got. He loves pedicures now. Then he doesn't go like right in the salon, but it's just like this lady that I go to, she's really, really nice at-home salon, and we be going there on Saturdays. And he has his scotch while I have my wine, and we get our toes done.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I don't know what's wrong with me, because I feel like something's wrong with me because I have so many positive stories, but I can tell you how effed up the world is, because this is how it's supposed to be. But I met my boyfriend getting pedicures and manicures, and he was like, baby, you need a pedicure. I'm like,
Them toes
you, my toes are and stuff. And I'm like, this is different. This is really different.
I just feel like as Black people, we have to understand, right? Taking care of ourselves is like a radical act.
Self-care. It's a form of self-love.
I feel like, yes, self-care is trendy, but as Black people, we have to understand at no time in history were we ever encouraged to take care of ourselves. That was not it. It was like, do this, get this done, keep it pushing. But like to stop and take care of ourselves is a radical, radical thing to do. And it's very healing, like man, woman, or other, okay?
Yeah.
We got space for all y'all.
All.
But take care of yourselves and of each other. And we outright refuse to do that.
Right.
I like to call it self-reverence. Because at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need to understand that we are holy vessels.
Right.
Like, you need to take care of yourself first. You need to fill your cup before you fill others.
Right.
And
You fill it and you let it overflow.
you let your abundance.
I no longer pour out, you know.
Exactly. You don't pour out from your own
fill
cup. You let your
let it
abundance
overflow.
fill those of others.
Okay.
You never
I
let
like
your
that.
cup empty.
Oh, no.
But even like when we talk about men taking care of themselves, that's a stigma in itself over here.
Oh, yeah.
If any, I know so much men who is just like bitch about other men who dressing good.
Why? Then dress better.
Who got their hair done, or
Or he's get his hair cut every Friday.
Or
because
only
he
gay
cares
men
himself.
dress nice.
Yes.
I hate
Oh,
that
I don't
one.
like that.
Oh, God.
That is so much pressure.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even love yourself as a
Exactly.
man
Right?
without being chastised
You have to be so
about...
rough all the time.
Yeah, why you have to be scrubby all the time?
Right.
Like, I have a problem with that. But I ain't gonna lie, my father is like, I didn't know that men, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know that men not shaving their arm was a thing. Because my daddy, he's a very clean person. That dude was
You talking all your daddy business.
No, I hope you don't mind, but anyway.
I mean, it already don't know, but
Yeah, but it's like just watching him is like that's a man, that's a gentleman. He expresses himself, and it's making sense. My dad, I've never seen a man mad, and it's crazy because it's like who's that perfect? I'm pretty sure he's not perfect, but y'all, it looks
Or
close
maybe
to
this
it.
isn't let you see it.
Baby, let me see. And my daddy, he talks. Literally, when we were kids, my daddy didn't believe in beating. He believed in sitting down and telling you what's wrong. He said, well, why does that my daddy, look, he's a therapist. He making plenty sense.
I don't meet
He
your
used to
daddy,
sit down-
babe.
I swear.
No, for real.
Your daddy, babe.
But why you do that? That makes sense. He'll let you express yourself. He'll say, okay, well, I understand why you would do that. And then he would say, well, because I'm the parent and that's not right, you have to get beaten. So you used to not feel bad for getting beaten afterwards. Half the time he never used to beat you, but if it was really, really bad, he'll let you express yourself. He'll tell you why he's correcting it and why you have to get beaten.
Child.
Baby, too,
That
listen.
communication is
the
key.
belt buckle.
No, but see, that was my mommy's side because she didn't know any better. That's all she was raised on. My daddy was raised totally different. I don't know who the man was in his life, but whoever it was, man or woman, whoever steered him in the right direction, they did a great job.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I used to tell people all the time, I used to ask daddy to just beat me and not talk to me because that stays with you. Yes. You know what it is to disappoint your parents? And you understand fully, deep, why this is wrong. That's I'd rather get beat than get beat.
Don't talk to me.
No, for real. Later on, I can cry and I can be over it. But you know, you go on to bed like, Mother
You're
said, I
gonna think
disappoint
about
daddy.
that, like,
Mother said I shouldn't do that. That wasn't a good idea. I didn't deserve to get beaten, Dread. Like, you should have beat me more. Like, you literally thinking about that. Like, my sister, she's like, Daddy, please beat me. Please. And I want to sit down and talk. And that was his method. His method was, we can talk about it.
That's my box out. It's so good. She was begging to get beat. Jesus Christ.
Like, and when I tell my friends that, they was like, wait, this is crazy. I'm like,
It
but that
don't
was
even
literally
sound real.
No, that's my life. That was my life.
But
Mommy,
that
she ain't hearing
communication.
nothing. Wah. Daddy, we can talk. Jesus.
But that's the communication that we're
Yes.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Communication
That's not
we
common
need.
at all.
And the ability
That's not common.
Yeah.
for that vulnerability. The vulnerability is key, I find, and that's what we need here. The stigma is around vulnerability tying us into being weak. When you understand that you can embrace vulnerability, and that actually makes you stronger. And how does it make you stronger? It makes you stronger because you're more capable to understand your triggers. You're more capable to understand, hey, how can we do better? How can I know myself better? I feel like we live in a country where we don't allow kids to even know themselves. But they're constantly on like, oh God, did I do something wrong? Like what do I even do?
Yeah.
Because there's still not that communication where you can express yourself, where you can say, well, this is how I feel, or this is why I did something, or why I didn't do something. And that is the start of pushing kids into mental health issues, of the anxiety, the depression, the body dysmorphia, anything of the sort that ties into a mental health issue, all of that. And even when you look at our educational setbacks of how kids are in school, like especially with dyslexia inside school, we don't even talk to that. It turns into, oh well, you just being dumb, or you being this, or you doing this for attention. And that's mental health in itself too. And we don't talk to that. Like, we have so many kids in school that are struggling at the behind the scenes because of what's going on at home, what's going on in school, what's going on in their head, and then that transfers itself into their work. And even then, you have teachers or guidance counselors that don't realize the connect of all of that. And it's always it's about the grade, but it's never about, hey, what's going on? Do you want to sit down and
it's
talk?
It's about the grade, because I have always had such amazing grades. So much of the other things that was going wrong with me was just like, oh, well, you fine.
Nobody thought you was wrong.
No, you see this report card, like, you good.
Yeah.
And I was screaming it. I was screaming it like, something is wrong. And everyone was just like,
Nah, you good.
you're straight, man. You're straight.
Yeah.
And we don't understand the damage we do to our children, because vulnerability requires safety, So
Exactly.
you have to create that safe environment where your child will actually talk to you. And that's rough. That's rough. I get that. But at the end of the day, you have to be intentional about it. Like, you had a good daddy. I'm sure you never felt scared.
Never.
to tell him something.
I used to tell him more things than mommy.
Wow.
Way more things. Like literally, I was that comfortable with him. Like, for example, I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone, but I played sports, and sometimes we would change gyms, and it's like I tried borrowing people's phone. So I sneak a phone, and I had it for like a week. And I was like, oh, I have to tell Daddy. So I said, Daddy, I have a phone. Right? He's like, okay, well, it makes sense because you need to call me so I don't be driving everywhere looking for you. He said, but don't tell your mommy. So literally for 2 years, I had a cell phone and mommy didn't know. And when she found out, she was pissed. Me and him, like, we used to have a little secret. Listen to me. But that's because he made it that comfortable to talk.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to talk about everything. It is
and
so
admirable.
awesome. Yes, like my daddy, even now, up to the day, we talk about, he used to laugh about how green I was. Because I'd be like, Daddy, the children say the big F word in school like grade 7. That's the first time I heard an F word in my life in grade 7.
Big F word.
Big one, what's the
F
small
word.
one?
And we would talk about it now, and he'll chuckle. He'll be like, boy, I remember when my baby was so innocent. Now you so used to this word, you don't tell me nothing no more.
But that's true though. I feel like even when my stepdad came into my life, he was more into communication than my mom was. Because my mommy grew up in a typical Bahamian household,
Yes.
super religious. But I mean, granted, she tried to deviate from that norm to create a different society. But, you know, she still was kind of riding the coattails of me dealing with my daddy. But my stepdad was the one that introduced that communication. I remember this day, my mommy never used to let me shave my legs. And when I went off to boarding school, it was our first prom, and I had to wear the short skirt. And well, I half Austrian, so I am hairy. I am hairy as fuck. So my leg hair was like thick, and I was just in love with the idea of shaving my legs, not like hair shaving anyone. I was so in love with the idea of shaving my legs, so I know I couldn't talk to my mommy about it because she was so adamant. So I called my stepdad, and I was just like, I want to do it. He's like, well, do it.
Do it.
He's like, but don't tell your mommy. He's like, I'll work on how to tell her later, okay? And it was because of that, like, we created that bond. And then he ended up explaining to my mommy why it didn't make sense and da-da-da-da, why I should have been able to just do it. But it was like, it was him, I feel, that also kind of opened up my mom to those deeper emotional connections. Because we already were connected emotionally from dealing with so much together. But I think it was because of him that I have the relationship that I do with my mom right now, because I feel like she's learned so much more about communication, about emotions, about, you know, it's okay to cry. Because my mommy was, you know, just like how you talk about your mommy, I never seen my mommy cry. And that woman have a lot to cry about. But she grew up in that era of being a strong Black woman. You don't take no shit, you know, a single mother, like dealing with me and my sister. But it was my stepdad's presence of his balance of masculine and feminine that allowed her to embrace her soft Black womanhood. And there's something so beautiful about that, and I really wish that more Black people have access to this.
Yes.
Like that power of being soft, I equate it with the power of being vulnerable. And when you are allowed to be vulnerable, you let that armor down. You let that guard fall that you're using to protect you. But the only thing you're doing is stopping yourself from that transformation, that growth that comes from knowing yourself to a deeper level of understanding your triggers, understanding the depth of your mental stability. And that's what we need in a nutshell.
And the most important thing that you said too was it took your stepdad to show her that for her to change. Because same thing with my mom. It took my dad and little old me to show her that it's okay to express emotions. It took her until I was in high school, and because before I was scared to cut hip, and mommy could have cut hip. She's from the rocks.
Even
She
now,
is
like
from
you
the
saying that, like
ghetto.
I haven't.
Yeah, she's from the rocks.
Anxiety.
So she used to that, and her dad was a pastor, so she used to that. No questions, straight beating.
Yeah.
But it took me going off to Canada and understanding, hey, I can express myself. I can talk and job, baby. When I came back, I expressed myself. I never saw my mommy cry a day in my life until I expressed myself to her.
You okay?
And after I did that, and she broke down and she cried about it, I began to see the change in her. Like, remember when I said in the last episode, I hated my mom? I wouldn't change my mommy for the world now, just because I was able to break to break it. It was work between me and my dad because he was able to show me, okay, this is a better way. And now I was able to translate it to her to say,
Okay.
don't do what you don't want to be done. Like I'm here. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know? So with her dealing with me, mostly on the communication side, because, you know, men don't communicate as much as we do.
Exactly.
Right? So I can't give my daddy all that, you know? But I use
still you.
I still have to use my tone to help her. And she's, listen to me. If
I think
had
it's
had-
hard for mothers and daughters.
It is
though.
hard. It is hard.
It's hard for mothers and daughters.
But-
I know my mommy had a hard time with me, and there's so much I wish we could go back and do. And we didn't have no outside influences to come in and say, "Hey, you should do this." It was truly me and her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have a lot of grace and compassion looking back, but there are so many things I wish she did differently. My mom was ill for a decade. She got diagnosed with
Maybe it's something that I actually
a
should
kidney disease when I was like
finally
14.
accept
And the progression of that, like if she had just been honest and vulnerable with me about
Yeah.
how sick she was
Yeah.
and what I could expect, she forbid me from looking it up. She forbid me from Googling. She was like, no, da-da-da-da. She kept trying to make it less than it was.
Well, yeah.
And I think mothers have a lot of fear for their
Yes,
daughters.
I think
because
that's
they
what it is.
understand the world.
Yeah.
And they have their experience of how the world treated them. And it's like, I got to make my baby strong.
Yeah.
My baby got to be
That's
strong.
exactly what it is,
You know,
I feel.
but had she been honest with me, I think I would have been prepared when she eventually died. You
Yeah.
know?
And I
it wouldn't
think-
have been such a shock.
Exactly.
And I think nobody challenges anything. Like, because after going to school and understanding communication is key, it's good to talk. The shift in me and my mother's relationship happened when I understood it ain't me. I'm not the cause of it. It's because of her upbringing. And nobody challenged her to ask her why she is the way she is.
yeah.
And I challenge her to say, well, why are you doing this? Does that make sense to you? Would you want, like I would use my counseling skills, be like, would you want someone to do that to you? How does that make you feel? So why would you do that to me?
Yeah.
And it's really challenging. But all this is mental. So imagine the hurt she probably held when she was a child straight up to her adulthood. And
Generational.
then putting it on me, you know? So if it
Exactly.
wasn't for the shift and the positivity from my daddy, for me to get it, because you know, when you in a relationship, you're not gonna always get it from your partner. Sometimes the child have to come there and show you it, you know?
Yeah.
You have to give that a chance as well. I was the one who was able to help change her, and she's so much happier to me. She ain't as miserable as she used to be when I was younger. Like, sis happy. Like when I don't call, I talking about I was in boarding school. I wouldn't talk to my mommy for months. If I don't call my mommy in 2 days, oh, you forget you had a money. I right here, you know, you can call me.
Build that connection.
Our relationship changed just because of communication and just understanding, okay, yeah, she went through past trauma and she hasn't dealt with it. So I have to be that vessel to say, you're gonna have to deal with that because I need to talk to you. I don't want to lose my mother, you know? Like, because I remember when I was younger, my dad would tell her, obviously not around me, I used to put my ass against the door. He would tell me, if you don't stop, you're gonna lose Leandra. And this me in my head, yeah, damn right you're gonna lose me. Because she was so hard on me. But that's because her parents were so hard on her. They were bastards, you know. My mommy them used to wear the thing on their head and the skirt. I'm like, I couldn't live in that time. Like the person that I am, I couldn't do it. So imagine the pressure she had. And trying to keep this image and raise her daughter in that image. I'm like, baby, I ain't like that. So get with it, okay?
But I think that speaks to the importance of having a space.
Yes.
You know, having the proper space to be able to have the safety. Because with vulnerability, you need the safety to open up and not be judged.
Yes.
For it to
Like-
just be a space to be listened to and heard rather than a space to just be responded to.
like you say this, I can't even keep myself together.
You don't have to.
You don't have
And
to.
I guess like the reason why I like took to heart what was said about persons being weak and your mental illness being seen as like not just a disability but as a character flaw is because like recently I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and I understand now like things that I have to work on and things make sense. But like you just now like saying that it's something that you have to embrace and acknowledge. And I feel like now is finally the time that I can actually speak about it because I resonate with this so heavily.
Yeah.
And even if like there's just one person watching the show and I can help them and let them know that I understand like what they're going through, I want to be that person. Like I've been ashamed, wouldn't say ashamed, but I'm afraid of like what persons would say, especially when you hear like personality disorder and the depression and anxiety that you go through and what it takes for me to just grab myself out of depression like every single day. And now I'm starting to finally embrace it.
Yeah.
But I still have my days where it's like I have to fight. And even before, I just thought, okay, maybe, I'll be fine. We can talk about this because I think this is something that is very important to raise awareness. And here it is. I am afraid to tell my own story. So I just want to say thank you like so much for even bringing that out that, hey, you can't be afraid of judgment. You have to find your safety because you don't know who you can help. And I just feel like even those small words just now, like it's so much for me. And I'm sorry for crying so much.
Girl,
it's okay.
No, but I get where you're coming from, and I want to say thank you.
You are so
for,
brave.
For
Being vulnerable.
being vulnerable,
Yeah.
and this is what we're talking about: the power of vulnerability to let go, to just let go, to explore, to understand, to dive into that transformative moment of the connection that you have with who you are. And as you said, it is not a character flaw. And I feel like it's so important to speak to because especially when it comes to mental health, we like to tie it in with an image, of how it looks to be suffering from depression, anxiety, whatever. But, it can look like you, like beautiful,
And
with
I hide it so well,
great
but
makeup, great clothes, and it can look like me, like Boxer, like Keeya.
Like me.
It can look like all of us, where the outside world sees us as happy and nothing can be wrong, but it speaks to the point as to why you can't just go out there and call people weak because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Every person has a story, and the only person that knows that story to its depths is that person. So you have to watch what you say, and you have to be mindful of everyone.
That's why I was so angry because it's just like, I know what it is to feel like you don't understand why you are here on this earth. And here it is, it may be a day that I'm actually doing good, which is very rare. Because like I say, I work very hard to try pull myself out of it. And then I have to watch on TV, you call somebody like me weak.
Exactly. Not knowing how strong you are, how resilient you are
That
to keep
fight
going.
that I have to go through.
Exactly. And that's why it's so angering, because it's just like so many people are having this struggle where, since we have this stigma with mental health, is that extra push to have to put the facade on so people don't judge
got
us.
my lash coming off.
Girl,
You don't need them. You don't need them. But it's so much extra push to have this facade on because we don't have the platform where we can just say it's okay to be not okay.
Right.
Like, you don't have to pretend like everything is fucking perfect.
And you just called me out. Like, it was like instant. Like, I had to get up and walk, and I just was like breathing.
And I was hoping you came back because I felt bad. I was like, here we are talking about be vulnerable and it's a safe space.
Right.
And like you just left and we were just
Right.
like
No,
going
I
on
thank
like
you. No,
nothing's
I-
happening.
No, but
Thank you for that.
and the thing is that vulnerability comes in your own time.
Right,
So,
on your
And it goes to
terms.
show you don't even know, like you say, you dress up, whatever, you don't know who is battling with mental illness.
and I tell people that all the time, and especially when it comes to this day and age that we're in with social media, everyone looks at the forefront. No one looks at, the behind the scene reels. No one looks at what it
Right.
took to get there or what that person is currently going through. We're so quick to just judge. And a lot of times it stems from that projection of insecurities of not being able to deal with our own shit.
Right.
Nobody wants to deal with their own shit, so that it's easier to deal with someone else's shit.
You could drink. But I feel like
Why you always watching